Want to see how to turn simple inks into stunning fall masterpiece? Stick around because this one's packed with cozy autumn vibes. Hey crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. Can you believe it's already October? I have gone full fall mode in my card making and today we are blending gorgeous autumn colors with a little embossed resist magic. Ready to see how this cozy fall card comes to life? Well, let's jump right in. I'm working with some absolutely gorgeous shades today. We have rich browns and almost brick red tones that scream fall. For my background, I pulled out some Simon's Stamp Positively Saturated Mini Ink Cubes in the shade Allspice, Paprika, and Nutmeg. And then for my second trio, I'm going for Cabernet, Sangria, and Punch. And honestly, I was just looking for an excuse to use these big Altenew blending brushes. So, of course, I decided it was perfect time to create a beautiful ink blended background. I've picked two of these brushes today, one for each of those color families, so we get that smooth transition of all the fall tones. Now, to add a little bit extra, I'll be stamping some of the beautiful leaves from this two-step simple leaves stamp set. Now, this clear set comes with a variety of simple leaves shape, each with a coordinating second layer for the veins, stems, and the outlines. For our card today, I'll be using those delicate outlines to create our background. I will be stamping them with clear embossing ink and adding some beautiful gold embossing powder and then ink blending over it to create our beautiful embossed resist background. To get started, I went ahead and arranged all of those outline leaf stamps onto an A2 size card panel. I've placed this panel on my Altenew stamp wheel and I love that the ultra sticky mat holds the paper perfectly in place. It's especially helpful when you need to do multiple rounds of stamping. I actually placed all the leaves from the stamp set onto this panel, which took me a little time to figure out just the right arrangement. Once I'm happy with the layout, I picked up the stamps with the door of the stamp wheel and brushed the panel with my anti-static powder tool to prep the surface. Then I started stamping the images using the Simon's Stamp Clear Embossing ink. I stamped the panel 3 times to make sure I had a solid, even coverage across all those leaves. With multiple images like this, having a stamp tool and a sticky mat makes such a big difference. You don't have to worry about your paper shifting and you know you're getting an even coverage of all the clear embossing ink every single time. For the next step, I reached for my absolute favorite gold embossing powder. This one's the fine gold from Simon's Stamp. It never disappoints. Well, I sprinkled it generously over all of the stamped images, making sure that every detail was completely covered in that gorgeous shiny powder. Now, here's a little tip I always use. While I was adding the embossing powder, I had already turned on my heat gun in the background. That way, it's nice and hot before it touches the paper. This helps the powder melt quickly and gives you a cleaner finish. Now, since this background is fully covered with the embossing powder, you'll want to keep the heat gun moving across the panel rather than focusing it on just one spot for too long. That'll prevent any paper warping and keeps the embossing powder from over melting. So you get that beautiful raised gold shine across the entire background. I love using gold embossing powder, especially against a darker background. It just makes the design pop even more. Before I begin my ink blending, I like to give my panel a couple of minutes to cool down completely. Now, even though I kept my heat gun moving, the paper did warp just a little bit. Well, I'm not too worried about it, but if you prefer, you can always place the panel under a stack of books to flatten it out before moving on. Now, while my panel was cooling down, I pulled out my glass mat from Glassport Studios. I absolutely love this magnetic mat. It's hands down my favorite surface when it comes to ink blending on larger panels. It makes ink blending at the edges so much more smoother, and unlike the ultra sticky mat, it doesn't grab onto the brush bristles and leaves harsh lines. Of course, that's just my personal preference, but I find it so much more easier to work with. Plus, cleanup is a breeze. For my first set of colors, I started with those gorgeous brown shades. I have nutmeg, paprika, and allspice. Nutmeg is the lightest of the three, and when you blend them together, you get the most beautiful gradient that almost looks like an ombre effect. The large Alteneu brushes make this process so much more easier. They are gentle on my hand and shoulder, and they give such a smooth, even blend across the panel. I went back and forth with all three of those brown shades, layering them until I was happy with the blend. The great thing about these positively saturated inks is that once they dry, they look even smoother and more blended than they do right now. And just wait until we bring in the second color trio, the rich Cabernet, Sangria, and Punch. These are really going to make this background come alive. The shade Punch is a much lighter pink, but once you start blending it with the deeper tones like Cabernet and Sangria, you will see the transition shift beautifully into that beautiful brick red color. That's what really gives this panel that warm, fall-like feel, and it makes the gold embossing in the background shine even more. Now, even though I was working with a trio of inks, I wasn't aiming for a strict ombre effect this time. I just wanted to play with the colors, so I wasn't too concerned about where each shade landed or how intense it turned out in different areas. In spots where I felt that the panel needed more depth, I brought in the darker tones from the trio, and in other places, I softened things with lighter shades. By overlapping the inks, I ended up with such a gorgeous organic transition of color across my panel. Once I finished the ink blending, I brought in my microfiber cloth to wipe away any of that excess ink sitting on top of the embossed image. This is where the embossed resist technique really shines. The heat embossed areas resist the ink, so these beautiful leaf outlines stand out perfectly against the ink blended background. Now, this would be even more noticeable if you're working with white or clear embossing powder, but I just love how the gold adds that extra fall elegance. Now, with our background panel ready, I trimmed it down using my new A2 postage frame dies by Simon Says. Now, this is actually a nesting die, so you could pick whichever size works for your project. I went with a second die, which gives me a panel that is slightly smaller than an A2 size card base. That way, I get a very clean white border around my ink blended design, which really helps frame and highlight this gorgeous background. Well, we are definitely not done with all that gorgeous gold shine and shimmer. I decided to add a layer of sparkle by spraying the panel with fossilized amber distress spritz spray. I absolutely love this spray. It gives such a beautiful, subtle shimmer that really brings the entire background to life. I took my ink blended panel over to my splatter box and lightly misted it with spritz spray, making sure to cover the entire surface. The effect is just magical. The shimmer catches the light beautifully and really enhances all those rich fall tones we blended earlier. While all that beautiful shimmer spray dries, let's move on to our sentiment. I'm using this absolutely gorgeous stamp set called Pumpkin to talk about, and I'll be using the Happy Thanksgiving sentiment from this step. I stamp the sentiment with clear embossing ink on black cardstock, then sprinkle the same gold embossing powder that we used earlier and heat set it. The gold really pops against that dark black background. To cut out my sentiment, I'm using the sentiment labels die by Simon Says. Now, these label dies are longer than most of the sentiments, but I have a little trick for you. Place the die at one end of the sentiment and run it through your die cutting machine. You will get a clean cut on that side. Then simply move the die to the other end of the sentiment and run it through your die cutting machine again. This way, you end up with a perfectly cut sentiment label every time. Neat, precise, and just the right size. With our sentiment label ready and that gorgeous background completely dry, it's finally time to assemble our card and bring this beautiful Thanksgiving project to life. I decided to adhere the panel onto a top folding A2 size card base using some liquid glue. Of course, if you'd like some extra dimension, you could easily add foam tape behind your ink blended panel. For some added depth, I popped up the sentiment strip with foam tape and placed it in the lower left quadrant of the panel. And that's it. Our absolutely gorgeous, shiny, and shimmery fall card is complete. Perfect for Thanksgiving and full of warmth and autumn vibes. Well, at this point, you could also add some fun gold sequin mixes, but I thought that the sprit spray already gave a lot of shine and shimmer to our background. I hope this tutorial inspires you to pull out your inks, embossing powders, and ink blending brushes to create your own gorgeous backgrounds at home. Don't be afraid to play with colors and techniques. The results are always unique and so rewarding. If you love this project, make sure you stick around because I have even more fun fall card ideas coming up in my next videos. You won't want to miss it. All the supplies that I used to create this card will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm so excited you're here because today I'm diving into a brand new release by Cat Scrappiness. This is the Who Will Christmas collection, which is absolutely adorable, filled with playful holiday images, festive sentiments, and that magical Christmas cheer we all love. If you love all things merry, shiny, and a little bit whimsical, get ready because today's card is straight out of Who Will. This new Christmas release is packed with charm, sparkle, and so many creative possibilities. This release is packed with absolutely gorgeous pattern papers, festive stamps, and perfectly coordinating die sets. Everything you need to bring your Christmas cards to life. Well, I'll start off with the Who Will stamp set, which has the cutest little images you can use to build a fun and festive holiday scene. There's an adorable decorated Christmas tree, a cozy wood sign, and a tiny mailbox, along with stacks of presents, and of course, our sweet little characters wishing you a very Merry Christmas. This set comes with coordinating dies to make cutting and layering super simple. Next up, we have Mount Crumpet stamp set, which is a smaller 3 by 4 inch set that's just too cute to resist. Picture a reindeer pulling Santa's sleigh stuck on snowy Mount Crumpet with our little Mr. Grouch hanging on for dear life. It's such a fun, playful image, and well, this set also comes with a coordinating die that cuts this entire scene in one go. And of course, no collection is complete without some beautiful pattern papers. Next, we have the Who Will Christmas paper pad, and it's absolutely gorgeous. This 6 by 6 inch double sided paper pad features 6 stunning patterns with 4 sheets of each design that perfectly coordinate to match both the Mr. Crumpet and Who Will stamp sets. You will find a wonderful mix of festive holiday colors. We have rich greens, classic reds, snowy whites, and a few fun pops of colors to bring that Who Will magic to life. There are papers that make fantastic snowy backgrounds, some filled with delicate snowflakes, and others that feature tiny illustrations inspired by the stamped images themselves. What I love the most about these pattern papers that these aren't just great for card backgrounds. You can actually use them as coloring inspirations for your stamped images too. These designs and color palettes work beautifully together, making it super easy to mix and match and layer your projects for that perfect festive look. Now that we've looked at all the products from this fun new release, I'll be, well, using all of them today just to show you how beautifully they coordinate and work together to create a cohesive festive look. I'm starting off by stamping a few images and adding color to them using my alcohol markers. On a piece of white cardstock, I stamped the Mount Crumpet image along with the signboard image from the Who Will stamp set. I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp these images since I planned on heat embossing them for that extra shine and definition. Well, don't forget to use your anti-static powder tool before stamping your images. Also, just a quick tip, if you're heat embossing and planning to color with alcohol markers, make sure to let the pigment ink dry completely before you start coloring. Otherwise, it can smudge into your stamped lines. If you prefer to skip embossing, you can always use the Memento Black ink instead. It's alcohol friendly marker and it gives you crisp, clean lines every time. Personally, I love adding embossing powder to my stamped images, not just for that beautiful glossy shine, but also because it gives the colors a little extra pop once everything is colored in. It adds such a nice and polished finish to the design. After stamping the images, I sprinkled on some clear embossing powder. You could also use black embossing powder if you prefer a darker, crisper outline. It really depends on the look you want. Both options work beautifully. Now, since these images have some very fine and delicate details, I made sure that my heat gun was nice and hot before bringing it to the paper. This helps the embossing powder melt quickly and evenly without warping the cardstock. Now, as I melted the powder, I kept the heat gun moving. This is really important because it prevents the powder from overheating or over melting, which can cause those lines to lose their crisp edge. Once everything was melted, you can see that gorgeous glossy finish that adds instant shine and dimension to our stamped images. Here's a closer look at these images. Isn't that shine just absolutely gorgeous? I love how that embossing catches the light and really brings out all those fine little details in the design. Well, I'm going to give this panel a few seconds to cool down completely before starting the coloring process. This step is super important because coloring on warm embossing can sometimes cause the tips of your markers to pick that melted powder or ink. When it comes to alcohol markers, my go to favorites are my Ohuhu markers and the Spectrum Noir Triblend markers. Both of these blend beautifully and give you vibrant, even coverage, perfect for adding depth and shading to all those adorable Christmas details. Once my embossed panel was completely cooled, I began adding color to those adorable images. For the larger areas of the stamped image, I reached for my Ohuhu alcohol markers. These have wonderful brush tip, which makes them perfect for coloring in broad spaces and achieving smooth and even blends. I decided to stick with the classic Christmas color palette with rich greens, deep reds, and cool blues to bring in that cozy winter feel. These traditional tones instantly bring warmth and nostalgia to any Christmas card, and I love how they complement with the whimsical style of this Woo Hill collection. The Ohuhu markers blend beautifully, especially on smooth cardstock. I like to start with the lightest shade first and then gradually build up the darker tones to create soft shadows and dimensions. This helps give the image more life and makes them pop off the page. For all the smaller, more delicate details like this mount crumpet, the facial features, I switched over to my Spectrum Noir Triblend markers. These markers have a fine tip which makes it easier to control the color in tighter places without bleeding outside the line. The best part about these markers is that they come in three different shades. We have the light, medium to the darkest, so shading becomes a lot more easy. I took my time working through each section, making sure to keep my highlights bright and leaving a few areas of white space to mimic the look of reflected light. This small detail really enhances the shiny embossed lines and ties beautifully with the festive spark we'll be adding later. For the snowy mountain, I went with a very light blue marker to create that soft frosty look. I absolutely love the gentle gradient and the subtle shadows it adds. It really gives the illusion of depth and that cool, crisp winter feel. To make it more dimensional, I blended the edges with the slightest into white so it feels like snow catching the light. When it comes to the signboard, I colored the wood with warm brown tones, keeping the grain visible for more natural look. But I purposely left the letters uncolored, letting the white of the cardstock show through. I really wanted these letters to stand out and stay bright against the wooden background. Plus, we'll be adding some sparkly glitter to the uh, signboard, which will add a touch of shimmer and sparkle and make such a difference once the light hits it. At this point, the images already look so much fun and cheerful. The mix of embossed shine, bright colors, and soft gradients perfectly captures the Woohill Christmas magic. Once I finished coloring all the images, I moved on to die cutting. I die cut the colored panel first, and then I also cut extra piece from scrap piece of white cardstock. The reason I like to do is simple. By adhering both these pieces together, it gives the die cut some extra strength and stability. This makes it much more easier to handle when layering it onto your cards and also helps the image sit nicely without bending or warping. With the die cut pieces ready, we are all set to assemble the card. Well, I did add some touch of sparkle to some places on the sleigh using gold gel pen. You could also use yellow marker, but I prefer using the gold gel pen over the yellow marker. I feel it's the small step, but it really makes a difference in the final look and feel of the card. Now that our focal point image is bright and colorful, it's time to add lots and lots of sparkle. Because what's a winter card without a little shimmer, right? Whenever I am working with winter theme projects, one of my absolute favorite products to use is the sparkle glitter. It's perfect for creating that magical snowy effect. Here's my process. I start by applying glossy accents to the areas of the image where I want it to resemble snow. For this card, I applied glossy accent on the areas of the mountain and the snow on the signboard. Once the glossy accent is applied, I sprinkle the glitter directly on top, making sure that the entire area is well coated. After sprinkling, I set aside the piece to dry completely. I always give it a minimum of 30 minutes because you want all that glitter to fully adhere to the glossy medium. Once it's dry, that beautiful glitter stays in place and creates the sparkly, snowy effect that really makes your image come to life. Here's a closer look at that absolutely gorgeous glitter on the signboard. Isn't it just stunning? I tapped off the excess glitter and let the glossy accents dry out completely. While my focal images were drying, I decided to move on to the background. For this, I chose this beautiful blue pattern paper from the Whoville Christmas paper pad featuring the delicate white dots that resemble falling snow. I cut the panel to measure 4 by 5 1 quarter, which is slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. I love having the white border around the edges. To add a little extra depth, I applied subtle shading around the edges of the panel using different shades of light and dark blue. This gives the background a soft dimensional look without taking away from the focal point images. Next, I wanted my two focal point images to sit on snowy hills, so I used the hills from the Crafter's Essential Winter Edition dies by Cat Scrappiness. I created two separate hills, which I plan to layer on top of each other to create a natural layered snowy landscape. These hills will give the scene a sense of depth and help the characters feel more grounded in their whimsical Boo Hill setting. Next, I adhered both the snowy hills onto my pattern paper background. For the hill in the background, I applied liquid glue directly onto the paper for a smooth flat layer. And for the hill in the foreground, I wanted a little dimension, so I popped it up using foam tape, giving the scene a nice layered dimensional look. To tie everything together and add that magical winter sparkle, I also applied glossy accent along the edges of both the hills and sprinkled on some of that sparkly glitter, just like we did with our focal point images. This creates a soft, frosty effect that really enhances the snowy landscape. Once the hills were ready, I set the panel aside along with my focal point images to dry completely. I returned about an hour later to assemble all of the components together, and the scene was ready to come to life on a card base. Now that everything is completely dry, it's time to assemble the card. I started by placing my background panel with the hills on top of an A2 size card base. I made sure it was centered and adhered it using liquid glue so that it lays flat and secure. Next, I positioned my focal point images on top of the hill. I directly glued the mountain image on the background using liquid glue and also used foam tape for the signboard. Now, this helps the characters stand out a bit against that snowy landscape and adds depth to our scene. If you wanted, you could also add some sequin mix or snowflake sequences on the background and add a Merry Christmas sentiment on the front of the hill. But I decided to keep it as is, and well, maybe later on, while I decide to send it to someone, I would add a sentiment to this card front. And just like that, our card is finished. It's colorful, sparkly, and full of holiday cheer, perfect for sharing with your family and friends this holiday season. And there you have it. Our Who Will Christmas card is complete. I absolutely love how this card turned out. I hope this gives you some inspiration to play with the new Who Will Christmas release by Cat Scrappiness. Whether you're coloring, layering, or adding glitter, there's so many ways you could make your holiday card uniquely yours. All the supplies that I used to create this card will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means you shop using one of my links. I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again so much for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. With Diwali right around the corner, I thought it'd be perfect time to create some vibrant and beautiful Diwali cards. These designs not only are fun and easy to make, but also perfect for mass producing. So you can quickly craft a whole batch to share with your friends and family this festive season. Well, since I was planning to mass produce these cards, I decided to keep the design super simple and, well, honestly, it was also a perfect excuse to use my new blending brushes by Altenew. For today's project, I reached out for the Leaf Burst stencil by Altenew. This is an older stencil that I had, which I think beautifully mimics a Rangoli pattern, which is such an essential and symbolic part of Diwali festivities. I'll be making three cards today, so I already prepped three panels measuring 4 by 5 and quarter inches each. We are going to have some fun with ink blending and play with lots of vibrant colors. All the inks that I'll be using today are by Simon's Stamp, the Positively Saturated Ink Collection. For my first card, I've gone with a bright festive color combination. We have yellow, pink, and purple. The shades are citrine, sweets, and amethyst. I'll be blending all of these using my big blending brushes to get that smooth, radiant finish. You could definitely use a sticky mat to hold your panel and stencil in place, but today I'll be working on my Glassboard Studios magnetic glass mat. You'll notice these three little purple magnets in the corner. Well, they are perfect for keeping my panel and stencil securely in place while I'll do all of that beautiful ink blending with those gorgeous colors. Once I had my panel in place, I positioned the stencil right over it. Now, this part is totally up to you. You can decide how you'd like the design to be featured on your card front. For all of the three cards that I'll be creating today, I'll be using the leaf burst stencil as my main background pattern, but I'll slightly change the orientation and placement each time. That's actually a fun trick when you're mass producing cards. You can keep the same basic design but switch up just a few little details like color combination, stencil placements, or even your sentiments. It gives you a cohesive set of cards that feel unique and personalized. For card number one, I started by ink blending citrine, that gorgeous vibrant yellow, right in the center of the leaf burst design. Next, I went with sweets, that beautiful pink shade, followed by amethyst to complete that soft radiating pattern. I also added a tiny few pieces of post-it notes around the edges of the stencil just to mask off the panel and keep the ink from getting onto those crisp white areas. You'll notice that I'm not being very particular about how the color blends or radiates out. I really wanted that organic, natural transition between the shades, and I absolutely love how that yellow and pink blend together to create a warm coral tone, and how that pink and purple merge to give such a rich, vibrant finish. Before removing the stencil, I wanted to add just a touch of shine to this beautiful background. So I gently moved the magnets towards the edge of the stencil and gave the panel a light misting with some frosty shimmer spray. This adds the softest sparkle, subtle, but it really catches the light beautifully once it dries. Then I carefully lifted off the stencil, and oh my goodness, look at that pattern. It looks absolutely stunning with a bit of shimmer on top. Now, since I was mass producing these cards, I like to work in steps. So while this first panel is drying, I'll move on to creating my second background. But before that, it's time for a quick cleanup of the work surface and of course the stencil so it's ready for the next round of colors. To clean your glass mat, just spray a little water directly onto it and then wipe it with a microfiber cloth. For my stencils, I like to place them over a microfiber cloth, give it a quick spritz of water, and then gently wipe it clean with another cloth. It's quick, easy, and keeps your stencil looking brand new always. Moving on to panel number 2, we'll be doing the same exact process. Ink blending through that beautiful leaf burst stencil, but with a little twist this time. You'll notice that I have changed the positioning of the stencil and I'm also switching out the colors and the blending style. For this one, I'm using two gorgeous shades. I have amethyst and iris, a beautiful bluish purple paired with a deeper lavender tone. Unlike my first card where the colors radiated outward from the center, this time I'll be blending half of the panel with iris and the other half with amethyst. It creates a striking two-toned effect while still keeping that festive Diwali vibe. These ink blending brushes work beautifully with those positively saturated inks, giving such a smooth, effortless blends with vibrant color payoffs. And just like we did for the first card, I finished this panel with a light mist of the Frosty Shimmer Spray for that soft, elegant sparkle that ties everything together. Here's a closer look at the panel. I absolutely love how this turned out. After cleaning up my stencil and work surface, we are ready to move on to panel number 3. And for this one, I'm once again going with two shades. And since we've been mixing colors, I couldn't skip my absolute favorite color combo for the year, which is pink and orange. This blend has been my go-to lately, and I have used it in so many projects from stenciled backgrounds to die-cut designs and even stamped images. For this panel, I'm using sherbet and sweets. Sherbet on the top half and sweets on the bottom to create that gorgeous two-tone rangoli inspired background. Once the ink blending was done, I gave it a quick spritz of the shimmer mist, just like before, to add that soft festive sparkle. Let me know in the comments below which one of these backgrounds was your favorite. I absolutely love these color combinations, and even though this is technically a leaf burst stencil, it is so beautifully mimicking a rangoli design. It instantly takes me back to my childhood where we used to make rangolis, eat and enjoy lots and lots of sweets, and have fun with firecrackers. Diwali truly is a festival of color and light, and everything around just feels so vibrant and full of life. That being said, I wanted to add lots and lots of sparkle to these cards. So I bought these three panels over to my splatter box and added some gold and copper metallic watercolor splatters. Well, as much as I love clean and simple cards, I feel like Diwali cards deserve extra color and shine. It's the perfect way to capture all the vibrancy and the festive spark of the season. You could also try adding black watercolor splatters to give a pop of contrast. I think that would look stunning against the colorful designs and the crisp white background. Another option would be running these panels through embossing folders to add textured pattern. But I decided to keep things simple today since we are focusing on mass producing quick and easy cards. Once my panels were completely dry, I adhered them onto top folding A2 size card bases. I wanted to keep these cards light and easy to mail, so I used liquid glue to stick the panels down. Of course, if you'd like a bit more dimension, you could use foam tape instead. Diwali is such a joyful festival of lights and colors celebrated with family, sweets, fireworks, and of course, beautiful decorations. We have rangoli, lightings, crackers, so much more. It's all about bringing brightness and happiness into your home and spreading that festive cheer. I'd love to hear from you. Which other color combinations would you try for your Diwali cards or projects? Share your ideas in the comments below. Now that my cards are ready, all that's left to do is add a little sentiment strip. For these cards, I used sentiment that says Happy Diwali to you and your family from this super cute stamp set called Festivals of India by Crafty Scrappers. It is such a fun set filled with adorable images that are perfect for Diwali, Holi, and Raksha Bandhan cards. I stamped the sentiment onto black cardstock and then heat embossed it with gold embossing powder for that festive shine. I then went ahead and created 3 cm strips of camera, and now we can add them to our card fronts. I used foam tape to give these sentiments a little bit of dimension and make them pop against our colorful backgrounds. And there you have it, 3 vibrant and festive Diwali cards, all ready to spread a little extra joy this holiday season. I absolutely love how these colors, shimmer, and metallic splatters bring these cards to life, and even though we kept the design simple and quick, they still feel bright, cheerful, and full of festive spirit. I hope this video inspires you to try making your own Diwali cards, whether you stick with these same color combinations or experiment with your own. Remember, even small touches like shimmer, metallic splatters, and a beautiful sentiment can make your cards really special. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video as much as I did creating these cards for you guys. Well, I will definitely be linking all of the products that I used for today's video and some fun stamp sets that I really love. Please note that all of these links will be affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe, happy crafting, and wishing you all a very happy Diwali. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Well, can you believe it? We are already in the final quarter of the year, and that means it's time for another surprise from your paper insider. Well, today I'll be unboxing box number 13, and it's packed with fun, colorful, and sparkly papers. Just like the previous edition, this box features a gorgeous selection of handmade papers, each with its unique texture and finish, perfect for your fall and winter theme projects. I'll be walking you through every sheet, giving you a closer look, and sharing my thoughts on each one. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive right in. I like to store all of my papers right in the same box. It just makes it so much more easier to keep track of what papers I used for my project. Plus, each of these boxes come with these handy cheat sheet that lists the names of all the papers that are included inside the box. Now, the first surprise in the box is this absolutely gorgeous Aurora origami paper pack. Well, I have to say, I personally have never used or played with origami paper before, so this one has really caught my attention. Now, this pack includes 8 sheets in a stunning Aurora shimmer finish. They almost look like the Northern Lights. You will get 2 sheets, each in pink, blue, yellow, and beautiful pinkish orange shade. And if you take a look at the packaging, it even has some easy instructions for making your own origami pieces. Well, I definitely want to try my hand at origami. It looks so much fun, but I'm not sure if I'll be using all 8 sheets for that. But instead, I can totally see myself using these sheets to create some absolutely beautiful focal point images for my cards. They'd look stunning even as background panels. I love that soft diagonal pattern on these papers, and just look at how gorgeous that aurora effect is. It shimmers so beautifully when the light catches it. Now, let's take a look at the other papers included in the box. The first one here is called light blue Mizutama rayon paper. It's such a delicate sheet, almost like a single layer of tissue. It feels so soft and airy, and I can already imagine how lovely it would look layered over a solid cardstock. Take a look at that gorgeous feather-like texture. Next up, we have the silver holographic micro mosaic sheet, and oh my, this one is absolutely stunning. I just love the intricate mosaic pattern. The fine detailing really makes it catch the light beautifully, and it shines even more than most of the holographic papers I have in my stash. Next, we have a couple of beautiful blues, starting with the Amazon Blue Lisibo cardstock. This is a solid color, 235 GSM heavyweight cardstock. It's nice and sturdy, thick enough to be used as a card base, which I really appreciate. Then we have the light blue non-shed glitter cardstock, and I absolutely love these glitter papers by Your Paper Insider. They're not only great for adding sparkle to your focal points, but I love using them to create die cut sentiment. They add just the right amount of shimmer without any mess. Next up is this 100-pound blueberry pop tone French cardstock, a rich, vibrant shade that's perfect for adding pop of color to any project. Following that is this absolutely stunning light blue living wave Gaumont white paper. Now, this one's made in Germany and it has the most beautiful, deep, embossed wave like pattern. It almost feels sculptural. The surface plays so beautifully with light and shadow, creating that striking effect. I can totally see myself using it for ocean or beach theme cards. Moving on, we have the Eucalyptus Curious Metallics cardstock. This is an 80-pound cardstock with that lovely metallic sheen that catches the light so beautifully. It's elegant but still versatile enough for so many different projects. And just look at this next one. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is the Yuzenshi paper in black with color floral. Box number 12 also had similar style of the Yuzenshi papers, and I have to say I just love how bold and striking these are. They make the most stunning card backgrounds rich, textured, and full of personality. Moving on to some beautiful greens, we'll start with this absolutely gorgeous holiday green Lisibo Colors cardstock. This one's a deep, rich green, heavyweight cardstock, perfect for creating your holiday greens. You can pair it with a lighter key lime color mates cardstock, and together these two shades can make beautiful, gorgeous combinations for your Christmas foliage, especially if you're crafting Christmas trees or wreaths for your card fronts. Next, we have this Kelly Green Cadillac cardstock, which is such a gorgeous, glossy green paper. It has that sleek finish that instantly adds a polished touch to any project. Well, you all know how much I love using vellum on my cards, especially when it's something as stunning as this green leaf vellum paper. It will pair beautifully with all the other greens we just looked at and would be perfect for creating lush layered foliage. Moving on to some of the warmer tones, first up we have the Poison Ivory Curious Metallics paper. It's a very subtle hint of shine that might not even be fully showing up here on camera, but in person, it looks absolutely stunning. Following that, we have the Canary Yellow Shimmer cardstock, and wow, this one is absolutely bright. Now, it's such a cheerful, sunny yellow, definitely not something that I already have in my stash, even for a solid color cardstock. It's bold, vibrant, and perfect for adding pop of color to your project. Speaking of pops of color, this pumpkin color mates cardstock really stands out with its bright, vibrant orange. I can already imagine myself creating pumpkins for my Halloween theme cards using this card. Next, we have the Marigold Thai Unuru paper, followed by an ultra wide smooth cardstock. Now, I've been using the papers from Your Paper Insider for almost 2 years now, and I absolutely love the Thai Unuru sheets. They have this delicate fiber like texture that's just beautiful. You can use them as is to create a soft, delicate floral accents or layer them over solid color cardstocks to make that bold, beautiful statement piece. The ultra wide smooth cardstock is definitely one of my favorites, especially when it comes to ink blending. Next up, we have the bright gold gloss glitter. Now, unlike the non-shed glitter cardstock by Your Paper Insider, this one is a glossy glitter paper with an absolutely beautiful reflective surface. I think it would be perfect for creating little die cut sentiments that really pop and catch the light beautifully. Moving on to some beautiful pinks and reds. First, we have this adorable baby pink cardstock. It's a solid color, heavyweight cardstock, perfect for a variety of projects. Next, we have the Red Wagon Miri Sparkle paper. I feel this is more like a delicate version of the No Shed glitter paper. It adds just the right amount of shimmer without being overpowering, making it perfect for elegant accents or even die cut elements. Next up is the Spellbinders Sicily Color Wheel cardstock, a beautiful coral, solid colored cardstock that's perfect for adding warm, vibrant touch to your projects. And once again, we have a fun vellum, this time the white fine lines vellum sheet. It has those absolutely delicate fine line details that make it perfect for layering over other papers or adding subtle textures to your card designs. Moving on from the baby pink and coral cardstocks, next we have the bright holiday red Lisibo cardstock, which is this rich, vibrant red that's absolutely perfect for your holiday themed cards. And now, this next cardstock is my absolute favorite from this entire set. This is the red brushed metal cardstock. It's a thick, durable paper with that luxurious metallic finish on both sides. The brushed texture mimics the sleek look of actual metal, catching the light beautifully with that rich dimensional shimmer you see. Now, I did try using it with die cutting, and I have to say this paper is really thick, so you might want to run it through your die cutting machine a couple of times to get a clean cut. But honestly, the results are so worth it. You can pair it with that gold cardstock to create beautiful holiday designs. Next, we have the white holographic confetti cardstock. Unlike the silver, which has more of a solid reflective finish, I love this white holographic. It has tiny sprinkling flecks that catches the light really beautifully. I think it would be perfect for snowy backgrounds or any of your winter themed projects. And last but certainly not the least, we have the light gray Savoy cotton cardstock. On camera, it might look white, but in person, it has the softest hint of gray, such a subtle, elegant shade that works beautifully as a neutral cardstock in any of your designs. And there you have it, all the absolutely gorgeous papers from box number 13 by Your Paper Insider. I'm honestly so in love with this collection. And what I really love about this box is that it takes you on a journey through color. It starts with those cool, calming blues and greens, perfect for serene winter landscapes, icy backgrounds, or soft, elegant card accents. Then it transitions beautifully into the warmer tones. We had reds, corals, pumpkins, and yellows, bringing such a cozy, festive feeling that's ideal for fall and holiday theme projects. Now, every single sheet here is special in its own way. The holographic elements, with the micro mosaic silver to the sparkling white confetti, catch the light so beautifully and will add magical shimmer to any project. Then we had the textured and the embossed cardstocks, which gave so much depth and dimension, making your creations look truly professional and unique. And let's not forget the vellums, the Thai Unuru paper, and the rich heavyweight cardstocks. All of these are so versatile, giving you endless possibilities to mix and match, layer, or use as stunning focal points for your cards. I can already imagine myself creating layered fall leaves, elegant winter backgrounds, shimmering holiday cards, or even bold statement pieces using these papers. Whether you're into die cutting, embossing, or just creating beautiful handmade cards, this box number 13 has something for every project and every style. If you're excited as I am about all these stunning papers, I highly encourage you to subscribe and check out box number 13 for yourself. It's such a thoughtfully curated collection, and I promise once you start creating with these papers, you will be inspired again and again. I will leave links down in the description box below for the subscription and all the other papers that you can find on the Your Paper Insider website. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. And also, if you're not familiar, this is actually my first time as a design team member for Your Paper Insider, which makes this journey all the more exciting. You can hop over to my blog or my Instagram account to check out more details about this new design team. We have so many really talented designers, and I'd love it if you could follow each of their work. There's so much inspiration to be found there. Well, I definitely couldn't resist myself, and the minute I had these papers in hand, I had to start creating. I made a couple of cards right away. My first project is a holiday themed card using those gorgeous greens to create a wreath. You can see how I layered the green leaf vellum with the holiday green Lesibo cardstock. For my sentiment, I used that bright gold gloss glitter cardstock, and for those little flowers, I used the baby pink cardstock. I added some gemstones and that beautiful embossed background. I love this card. My second project is an absolute cute and fun Halloween project. I created these little ghosts using light gray Savoy cotton cardstock and then decorated their costumes using some fun papers from this box. And check out that red brushed metal cardstock on my little vampire. Isn't he absolutely gorgeous? I'll be showing you the making of these cards in my next video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for joining me today and taking this unboxing journey with me. I hope you're inspired as I am by all these beautiful papers. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Halloween is all about spooky fun. But if you're looking to make a clean, simple, and absolutely adorable Halloween card, you're in the right place. With lots of die cutting and a sweet sentiment, I have created a beautiful Halloween card using papers from box number 13 by Your Paper Insider. If you've missed the unboxing of the latest box number 13 subscription from Your Paper Insider, I highly encourage you to check out that video. I share some absolutely fun, colorful, hand selected papers that are perfect for your fall and winter theme projects. Well, today I will be creating a Halloween card using some of these fun papers. Usually, when I make Halloween projects, they are a lot more spookier with a lot of texture and color, basically, pretty messy. But today I decided to go in a different direction and make a very clean and simple card using some adorable die cuts and a simple stamped sentiment. For my main focal point, I'll be using the costume Ghost Parade die set from Simon's Stamp. This was part of this year's Stamptember release, and I just love how cute these little ghosts in their Halloween costumes are. We have a little mummy, a pirate, a ghost with a witch's hat, and even a tiny little vampire. There's also a die that cuts out a little pumpkin basket, perfect for storing all your Halloween candies. To save us some time today, I've already cut out all the pieces using some fun papers from Your Paper Insider. I've stored them in these little triangle trays, and today we will be assembling each of those pieces to create our focal points. I also wanted to give a special shout out to that absolutely gorgeous red brushed metal double sided paper from box number 13 that I used to create the vampire's coat and the witch's hat. I just love the texture on this paper. It adds such a beautiful, rich look to our card. This paper is really thick, so I had to run it a couple of times through my die cutting machine to get that clean impression. There were still a few spots that didn't get completely cut, so I ended up using my scissors to carefully fussy cut them out. I started by assembling the witch's hat, which I cut using the red brushed metal double sided paper. And for that little yellow band you see along the base of the hat, I chose the canary yellow shimmer cardstock. You'll see me alternating between my Barely Art glue and Simon's Stamp craft glue to stick all of these tiny little pieces together. For the little pumpkin basket, I used the canary yellow shimmer paper for the base of the pumpkin and the pumpkin color mates cardstock for pumpkin's face. I like to hold these tiny little pieces with my reverse tweezers. It makes assembling them a lot more easier. Next, I arranged pieces for the pirate's hat. For this, I used the Amazon Blue Lacebo cardstock, which is a solid color cardstock, and I paired it with the same pumpkin color mates cardstock. And of course, my little pirate even has his tiny little eye patch. How cute and adorable is that? All of these pieces are really tiny, so I took my time making sure each one of them was glued together properly. I also kept all of those little triangle trays nearby so I didn't lose any of these tiny pieces. Now, if you'd like, you could also cut all these pieces all at once using white cardstock and then color them using your alcohol marker or blend inks in colors of your choice. It's a great way to customize your card exactly how you want it to be. For my ghosts, I cut them using light gray Savoy cotton cardstock. On camera, it almost looks white, but it does have a slightest hint of gray in it. I placed each of these ghosts on my ultra sticky mat from Altenew to keep them in place, while I wanted to add a little bit of shading to each of these ghosts. So I have my mini ink blending brush and Earl, which is a soft gray from the Simon's Stamp Positively Saturated ink line. You'll notice me dabbing some of that color off onto the lid of the ink pad. That helps make sure that I don't get any harsh line along the edges of my little ghosts. I blended just the tiniest amount of ink on the lower parts of each of those ghosts, creating a subtle shadow effect. You could absolutely leave them as is without any shading, but I love that soft hint of gray. It adds a light depth and dimension to our die cut images. Now, when you die cut the ghost, you'll notice tiny little holes where the eyes would go. Now, if you're using multiple ghosts on a card, I recommend adding a small strip of black cardstock behind each die cut. This creates the ghost's eyes instantly. You could also die cut the eyes from black cardstock and pop them into place, but that can be time consuming and tricky since you'd have to keep track of all those tiny little pieces. Adding a strip of black cardstock is by far the easiest method. Just take any scrap piece of black cardstock, add tiny dabs of glue to the back of the ghost next to the eye openings, and place your strips there. Simple and super effective. Now that all our die cut pieces are ready and our ghosts have eyes, it's time to assemble everything together. For my focal point, I'm using just four of these ghosts, just like what is shown on the packaging, and I'll be adding costumes to each one of them. I started with a little mummy costume that I cut using the Poison Ivory Curious Metallic cardstock. You might not see it here, but it does have the slightest touch of shine, which I absolutely love. For the second ghost, I added the witch's hat, just a tiny drop of glue on the edge of his head, and that's enough to secure the hat. The third ghost is my vampire. And well, how cute his little vampire coat is. I kind of wish he even had tiny little fangs too. For my fourth ghost, I decided to make him into this little pirate. I added his little eye patch, his pirate hat, and a little waistband tucked under his hand. Now, each of these die cut ghosts has openings under their hands, so you can tuck in a pumpkin basket or add the little belly bands. You could even cut out multiple pumpkin baskets and have them for all your little ghosts. It's such a fun way to customize your scene. Let me know in the comments below what kind of Halloween cards do you love creating? Do you enjoy mixed media projects, stamping spooky nighttime scenes, or adding die cut pieces to your cards? Well, I'd also love to hear if you have any special Halloween traditions that you follow every year. This year is going to be extra special for us because we will be taking our little one along with his elder fur brother for their first trick or treating. They will be both dressed as little dinosaurs, and I can't wait to see them in all that beautiful costume. It's going to be so much fun. Coming back to our card, I decided to pop up the focal point images onto a cream cardstock panel. Now, usually I would go for white, but this time this is the only pop of color I feel that I'll be adding to our background. I trimmed this panel down to 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches, leaving a nice border around the edges of the card base. I first arranged all of these die cut pieces on the panel to get the spacing just right and then moved the panel into my Altenew stamp positioning tool to add our sentiment. I chose a simple Happy Halloween sentiment from the Pumpkin to Talk About stamp set by Simon's Stamp and stamped it right below the focal point images using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I like to use the grid transparency sheet to make sure that my sentiment is properly aligned. Usually, I like to add some splatter to my backgrounds, but for this card, I decided to keep it super simple, which is definitely a challenge for me, especially when creating Halloween cards. Now that my sentiment is in place, it's time to arrange all of these adorable ghosts in their Halloween costumes onto the card front. I decided to pop each one up using tiny foam circles, giving them just a subtle lift. To make sure that all these die cut pieces are perfectly aligned, I used my T-square ruler. I also added small drops of liquid glue over the foam circles so I'd have a little wiggle room before committing them to their final placement over the panels. Now it's time to adhere this panel onto our card base. I popped up the panel using foam tape and adhered it onto a bright red card base, and well, that's our finished card. I had so much fun creating this Halloween card, especially using those gorgeous papers from Your Paper Insider box number 13. The colorful hand selected papers made cutting out these little ghosts an absolute joy, and the variety of textures and finishes really helped bring each costume to life. I hope this inspires you to create your own clean and simple Halloween cards using fun, vibrant papers. You don't always need spooky or messy elements to make an adorable Halloween card project. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun watching today's video as much as I did creating this absolutely adorable card for you guys. All the supplies that I used here will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel. Are you like me and always looking for ways to stretch those craft kits a little more? Today, I'm playing with the new Craft Your Life project kit from Altenew and made not one but two cards using everything that came in it. The products coordinate so beautifully and it honestly makes designing super easy. You can whip up a bunch of these in different color combinations and have a whole stack of cards ready to go. It was actually my birthday earlier this month, so I decided to treat myself to some fun goodies from Altenew's latest release. I picked up two gorgeous embossing folders and the Craft Your Life project kit illuminated scenes. For today's video, I'll be focusing just on the kit and sharing the cards that I created with it. I will be using those embossing folders in an upcoming video, so definitely stay tuned for that. Alright, let's start with this adorable mini sentiments 3D embossing folder. This is actually my very first mini embossing folder by Altenew, and I was so excited to see it in my package. It features all these beautiful raised sentiments which you can use as one long strip, or well, I was thinking of embossing them on different color cardstocks and trimming them down to create cute little sentiment strips. Next up, we have the textured tiles 3D embossing folder, which has this gorgeous realistic brick-like design. I can totally see myself using this one for so many different card projects, creating beautiful backgrounds, which is perfect for adding that extra bit of texture behind some lovely floral accents. Now, let's take a look at this gorgeous Craft Your Life project kit, Illuminated Scenes. Now, we'll be using all the contents from this kit to create our cards today. Now, this kit is available as part of a subscription, but you can also grab it as one-time purchase if you prefer. Everything comes neatly packed in one of Altenew's signature storage pockets, which I absolutely love. The quality is amazing and they are perfect for keeping all your large stamps and coordinating products together. Inside the kit, the first thing I have here is this huge 6 by 8 inch stamp set, which has two stunning focal point images, one featuring a cozy living room scene and the other showcasing a lovely craft room setup. Now, there's also 10 versatile sentiments, perfect for sending crafty greetings to friends and family, or even for creating your own DIY wall art or decor pieces. Now, it was not until later that I noticed that the craft room scene on the table, you also have a little stamp wheel there. How fun is that? You also get a coordinating die set that cuts out all the sentiments plus a few frame dies that can be used beyond this kit. Super versatile for all kind of projects. There is an embossing folder included too, which adds a beautiful photo frame like texture to all those die cut frames that you can create. You could use white, black, gold, silver, or any kind of metallic cardstock would look absolutely stunning on these frames. Last but not the least, there's a set of four layering stencils to help you easily add glowing highlights and soft shadows to your stamped images. They make coloring these scenes an absolute breeze. If you're someone who's into alcohol coloring or use pencil colors, these images are absolutely stunning for that too. Now, here's the little stamp wheel that I was talking about. I think this was a very clever and thoughtful idea to include the stamp wheel in this design. One thing I really love about Altenew is how thoughtful they are with their layering sets. Now, whether it's a stamp, die, or even a stencil set, they always include a layering guide. It not only shows you exactly how to layer each piece, but it also gives you some beautiful color combinations to try. For this kit, since we are working with layering stencils, the guide is super helpful. It's a great starting point for choosing your colors and textures. You can, well, follow the suggestions and create the same exact design, or just mix and match and have fun creating your own unique color palette. For today's cards, I'm starting by stamping both of the focal point images onto white cardstock panels measuring 4 by 5 and quarter inches. I'll begin with a living room scene stamp. Now, first, I went ahead and placed my panel onto the Altenew stamp wheel, and since this is a brand new stamp, I like to gently rub my fingers over the surface first. This helps remove some of that initial stickiness and conditions the stamp so it's ready for a nice clean impression. Now, whenever I'm coloring or ink blending on a stamped image, I almost always heat emboss it. It gives a beautiful, shiny, crisp finish, which really helps define the lines and makes the image pop compared to just plain stamping in black ink. So, I started by prepping my panel with an anti static powder tool and then stamped the image using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which gives a rich, crisp impression. If you're not planning to do any kind of heat embossing, I'd recommend you use a dye ink instead. It dries faster and won't smear or bleed when you color with alcohol markers or ink blending. Now, I like to stamp the image twice to make sure I get perfect coverage, then sprinkle on some clear embossing powder and heat set it with my heat gun. Now, since these are larger images, it's best to let your heat gun heat up fully before bringing it to the paper. And I keep moving it so you don't overmelt the powder or warp the cardstock. Since I knew I was going to create two cards, I decided to make things a little more efficient by stamping both of the images first before moving on to the embossing. I love working this way because it feels like I'm batch producing each step. It saves a lot of time, especially when you're making multiple cards with similar designs or steps. So after I stamped both of my panels, one with the living room scene and other with the craft room scene, I sprinkled clear embossing powder over both the panels at the same time, and well, that way I can clean up the embossing powder once instead of going back and forth between the stamping and embossing for each individual panel. Once I had both the panels coated with the embossing powder, I went ahead and heat set them one after the other. This batching method really helps keep the workflow smooth and organized. You're essentially finishing one step completely before moving on to the next. This technique is especially helpful if you're mass producing a bunch of different cards that follow the same basic design or have similar elements. Doing each step in batches, like all your stamping first, then embossing, then coloring, keeps the process efficient and way less messy. Well, that's what I feel. Plus, it just feels satisfying to see all your pieces come together at once. After heat embossing, I noticed that my panels had warped a little, which is totally normal when working with larger panels and heat embossing them. A simple trick to fix this is place them under a pile of books for a little while to help them flatten out. Just make sure that before you start adding any color, those panels are completely cooled down. If they're still warm, the embossing might smudge or lift, and we definitely don't want that. While my panels were cooling, I decided to work on the sentiments. I stamped two of them onto the same white cardstock and then heat embossed them using the same exact technique that I did for the main images. It's nice to use the same process because it keeps the look consistent and gives a crisp professional finish to all the stamped elements. And with that, all of our stamping and heat embossing is done. This means that we are now ready to move on to the second phase of cards, which is where the fun really begins, adding color, shading, and bringing our scenes to life. I placed my first panel, the living room scene, onto an ultra sticky mat to keep it secure while I work. I'll be using the coordinating stencils to add color to these scenes, but if you prefer, you could skip the stencils entirely and use your alcohol markers to color the images by hand. Now, this stencil pack comes with four stencils for each design, and you'll notice there are etched markings on each one of them. These markings make it super easy to align the stencils with your stamped images. So don't forget to have the stencil guide handy. It really simplifies things and ensures everything lines up perfectly. The Alternate guide also includes a list of suggested colors for each scene. I decided to have a little fun and pull out some bright, vibrant shades from my Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink collection. Now, since some of these spaces are really tiny, I used a combination of my mini ink blending brushes from Cat Scrappiness and some of my larger blending brushes to get that smooth coverage across the panel. I also used small post it notes to mask off areas of the stencil where I didn't want any color. It's a simple trick that really helps keep everything neat and prevents stray ink from landing where it shouldn't. I have to apologize in advance. My head does get in the way a little times while filming, but I really needed to make sure that the stencils were perfectly aligned to achieve a clean, even look. For this project, I used some really bright, cheerful colors to make the scenes pop and bring a fun, lively vibe to our cut. Usually, when it comes to alternate products, I tend to gravitate towards anything floral. But this kit really caught my eye because of how versatile and unique it is. You'll see once I finish the stenciling, the way the color is applied feels almost like it's following a specific path, highlighting just the center of the image and leaving the rest of the design untouched. I think it gives the cards a very artistic and modern look, something I have never tried before. Normally, I'd either leave the entire stamped image as is or color the whole thing in. But this partial coloring technique, focusing just on the center of the stamp, feels completely different and really makes the focal point pop. I absolutely love the end result. It is so striking and unique. Once I finished the first panel, I carefully peeled it off the ultra sticky mat by gently bending the mat instead of pulling the paper. This helps prevent any curling or damaging of the paper. And take a look at this absolutely stunning design. I love the colors on this, and that partial coloring technique is gorgeous. Then I moved on to the second panel with the craft room scene. I used pretty much the same color palette as the first card, but thanks to the different scene and stencil placement, both the cards ended up looking completely unique. You wouldn't even guess that I used the same exact colors for both. Even though the colors are identical, I think it's because of the placement of the highlights and shadows that's slightly different for each scene. The two cards end up looking completely unique, which is what I love about these sets. When it comes to ink blending, a few simple tricks that can make a big difference is start light and build your color gradually. It's always easier to darken than to lighten. Use gentle circular or back and forth motions for smooth transition and overlap colors slightly so that you get a gradient and that looks a lot more natural. Keep your brushes moving to avoid streaks or dark patches and make sure to use the right brush for the areas. Mini blending brushes for tiny details and the larger brushes for bigger spaces. And just like that, both our panels are ready. I absolutely love how they turned out. The colors are so vibrant, and I especially love that we have one landscape and one portrait card. Next up, we are moving on to some die cutting. I decided to create frames for both the cards using the big frame die that you see here. I cut the frames from a gorgeous glittery paper. It's gold from the new Your Paper Insider box number 13. I love the touch of sparkle on this. It adds a beautiful golden touch to both our cards. This die is a single piece die, which means it cuts out all the frames at once. So it's super quick and easy. I kept the frames together since we'll be popping them into the embossing folder next. Now, because these products are designed to coordinate, aligning the frames in the crevices of the embossing folder is super easy. It's almost like fitting puzzle pieces together. Just look at how gorgeous that texture on each of those frames are. One thing to remember is that all of these are die cut before going into the embossing folder, so it was super easy to just pull them apart and create individual frames. For the living room scene, I decided to use the largest frame. I adhered the panel to the frame using liquid glue, which keeps everything nice and secure. You could also use some foam tape to pop it up to give it that extra bit of dimension. Well, it was at this point that I couldn't help but think this wouldn't just make a beautiful card front, but it could also be a stunning home decor piece. I can totally imagine placing it somewhere in my living room, maybe over the fireplace mantle. It would look absolutely gorgeous there. For my second card, I wanted to keep things a little simpler, so I grabbed one of the thin center pieces from the frame and mounted it directly onto the panel. I did try using one of the thicker frames at first, but I felt it was overpowering my beautiful stenciled image, so the thin frame worked so much more better. If I would recreate this card, I would definitely pop up the frames using some thin strips of foam tape to give it that bit of a dimension. For this card, though, I kept it simple and adhered the frame with liquid glue directly onto the stenciled panel. With that, both our main panels are ready. We have that beautiful stenciled image and the frames. Now it's time to add the sentiments that we had earlier stamped and heat embossed. I went ahead and die cut the sentiments, and to make them a bit more sturdier and give them that little bit of extra dimension, I also die cut a few extra layers from scrap white cardstock and stacked them together. This really makes the sentiment pop on the card. I love how thick this is. Well, you could also use foam tape, but I feel stacking up sentiments gives it a really polished look. I also prepared two card bases, one from classic white cardstock and other from a soft light purple cardstock to coordinate with the colors of the stencil scenes. With all the components ready, it's finally time to assemble the cards. I first adhered the panels onto card bases and then adhered the sentiment strips using liquid glue to both of the panels. I absolutely love how this turned out. This could definitely be a decor piece. For my second card, I mounted the panel onto the card base using some foam tape. I definitely love that extra bit of dimension there. And well, just like that, our cards are complete, one landscape and one portrait. And they both have those vibrant, artistic, modern feel thanks to the stenciling and embossing techniques we used. I'm so happy with how they turned out. And that's a wrap on today's video. I absolutely love creating these cards using the illuminated scenes kit, from the stenciling and the embossing to the frames and the finishing touches. The partial coloring technique really gives the scene a modern artistic look, and pairing them with that glittery embossed frame just makes them pop. These cards are perfect for sending to a friend, giving as a gift, or even displaying as a small piece of home decor. I hope this video inspired you to try something a little different with your craft kits and explore new techniques like layering, stenciling, heat embossing, and adding dimensional frames. I will have links to all the supplies that I used to create these cards. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm super excited today because I have some brand new must have products from Glassboard Studios to share with you. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you already know how much I love my magnetic glass mat from them, and it's honestly one of the most used tools in my craft room. But today I have two amazing new craft tools that I can't wait to show you. And here's a little bonus. Glassboard Studio is offering a 20% off site wide for a limited time. Just use the code Shutterbug at checkout, and you'll find my affiliate link and all the other details in the description box below. So this is the glass mat that I was talking about. I have the smaller 9 by 12-inch version, which is actually the smallest size available. They have sizes that go all the way up to 36 by 48 inches, and I definitely hope to upgrade to one of those someday. Now let's take a look at the two brand new products that were just released. The On the left we have the craft catcher, and on the right we have the mag ink tray. I picked mine up in this gorgeous purple shade to match the pawn magnets that you see on the left side of the mat. I personally love working on a black mat, but Glassboard Studios offers a bunch of beautiful color options, and the best part is they keep coming up with something new every month. Now, speaking of the tools, I have these pawn magnets. They come in a set of three in a variety of different fun colors. They're super strong, and I especially love using them when I'm ink blending on a panel. They hold everything perfectly in place. Now, one of my favorite ways to use these magnets during ink blending is to hold my paper in place while I play around with different colors. This is honestly a must have tool for me, especially when I'm working with my stencils. The magnets don't just hold your paper in place, but they also keep the stencil perfectly aligned so nothing shifts around while you blend. And if you know me, you know I'm not exactly a light handed blender. I tend to go in pretty heavy with my inks, so having these strong magnets means my stencil stays completely steady no matter how much pressure I use. Now, usually when I'm ink blending, I like to rest my ink pad on something a little tacky or on my Positively Everything tool just to keep it from sliding around. But now, Glassboard Studio has come up with something even better, their mag ink tray. Now, this clever tray is designed to sit securely on your magnetic glass mat thanks to that built in magnet at the base. It also features a non slip pad, so whether you are blending, brushing, or swirling, your ink pad stays perfectly in place, no slipping, no sliding. And you'll see my positively saturated ink pad sits perfectly inside the stool. You'll see that I've placed all the magnets around my paper to keep it nice and secure. Well, you could use just one, or sometimes, especially when I'm working with stencils, I like to have all these magnets placed around just to make sure everything is nice and snug. Then I will gradually add ink to the center of the panel. The mag ink tray is holding my ink pad perfectly in place. It doesn't move or shift at all. Even though I'm dabbing my blending brush onto the ink pad multiple times, the ink pad stays in place. That shows you how strong and sturdy the magnet on this tray really is. Now, it's products like these that make me want to upgrade my small glass mat to a bigger one, and I'm really hoping that happens sometime soon. Coming back to the mag ink tray, this little tool isn't just amazing to keep your ink pad in place while you're blending, it actually has another super handy feature. You see the funnel corner at the end? That's what I'm talking about. If you've been following me for a while, you know that as much as I love creating clean and simple cards, I also love adding sequin mixes to my cards as well. Now, whenever I use them, I usually pour the sequins out into triangle trays so I can easily see the different sizes and pick the ones that I want for my card front. But the mag ink tray makes that process even more easier. Now, one corner of the tray is shaped into a built-in pour spout, so when you're done using your sequins, you can simply tip the tray and use the corner to pour everything neatly back into its container. No mess, no fuss. And because the tray has that magnetic base, it stays anchored securely to your glass mat. So you don't have to worry about accidentally bumping it or spilling sequins everywhere, which is, well, let's be honest, happens to me all the time with those tiny little triangle trays that I usually use. And speaking of making a mess with all those tiny little sequin bits, I've got another awesome product for you guys that is going to make your messy crafting so much more easier. Now, along with the mag ink tray, Glassboard Studio also came up with these craft catchers, and it's such an fun and practical little set. Now, these come in a pack of three with three different sizes, so you've got one for every kind of project. Each tray has an edge scoop design, which means that you can easily tuck it under your magnetic glass mat. That makes it super easy to sweep all those tiny leftover bits from your desk. No more chasing sequences or die cuts across the table. Now, just like the mag ink tray, these craft catchers also features dual funnel corners, so you can neatly pour your sequin mixes or embellishments right back into their containers when you're done. Now, if you love working on gemstone art or diamond painting, you'll love this too. Each tray has gem alignment lines that'll help you flip and nudge your rhinestones or gems right side up and line them up perfectly. Now, they are also great for holding or sorting small die cut pieces. Since I'm someone who loves working on multiple projects at once, especially around Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, I always have die cuts scattered everywhere. These trays are such a game changer for keeping everything organized, easy to find while I'm creating. Here you'll see I have some tiny little ghosts, I have Christmas trees, and some fall leaves. I have trays to hold each of them and make sure all of these products are segregated so that I can use them for different card projects. Well, I hope you enjoyed checking out these new products from Glassboard Studios as much as I loved sharing them with you. The mag ink tray and the craft catchers are such handy additions to any crafty space. They make the whole creative process a lot more organized, a less messy, and honestly, so much more fun. Don't forget, Glassboard Studios is offering a 20% off site wide for limited time. Just use the code Shutterbug to check out to save on your order. I'll have my affiliate link and all the other details listed in the description box below. Please note that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more crafty inspirations coming your way very soon. Thank you again for spending some creative time with me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel. With less than 4 days left for Halloween, I realized I still needed to make a bunch of Halloween cards for friends and family. But honestly, I wasn't in the mood for anything spooky today, so I decided to go for some clean and simple designs instead. And to add a little twist, we are turning them into shaker cards. They are super easy to create and perfect if you're crafting for little ones who aren't big fans of scary Halloween vibes. So let's jump right in and I'll show you how I made these clean and simple and interactive Halloween cards. I'll be using some fun products from Cat Scrappiness today, including their amazing dies, stamp sets, and a gorgeous Halloween themed sequin mix. I'll be sticking to the traditional Halloween color palette of orange, purple, and black to keep that spooky vibe, but with a clean and simple twist. Now, before I show you the die set that I'll be working on for our cards today, I have to talk about one of my favorites. That is a simple sentiments stamp and coordinating die set from Cat Scrappiness. Now, this one is the Halloween edition and it's packed with fun and spooky sentiments that you can stamp all at once and cut out perfectly with the coordinating dies. It's a super handy set. Well, for our first card, I'll be using the Witch's Brew die set. Now, this is such a fun one. It comes with everything you need to build a cute little cauldron, witch's legs, and even some accessories for her shoes and her stockings. You will find two cauldron dies in the set, one for the outline and one for the shaker window. But for today's card, I'll be using just the outline die. All of the products that I'm using today are from previous Cat Scrappiness releases. Now, they've got such a great variety of goodies that you can use for your Halloween projects, ranging from stamps and dies to paper pads and sequin mixes. I'll be sure to link a few of my favorites down in the description box below. Now, to cut out my cauldron, I initially thought of going with plain black cardstock, but then I figured why not add a little sparkle and shine to this clean and simple card that I decided to create. So I grabbed my pouch from Simon's Stamp, which holds all of my glitter papers from Your Paper Insider. Now, from that collection, I picked this gorgeous black glitter cardstock. I absolutely love these glitter papers from Your Paper Insider because they are completely non shedding, mess free, and die cut beautifully. These are perfect for focal point elements or even tiny little sentiments. I went ahead and placed the die and the cardstock in sandwich and ran it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now you'll see that this cauldron is actually large enough to cover almost half of an A2 size card panel. The Witch's Brew die set does come with some tiny dies to cut out bubbles that look like they're oozing out of the cauldron, but I thought it would be fun to create my own little bubbles brewing the perfect Halloween potion. Now for that, I'm using the basic shapes circle dies from Simon's Stamp. I picked three of the smaller circles and scattered them above the cauldron to mimic those bubbling effects. I ran this piece through my die cutting machine and just like that, our little shaker windows are ready. Next, we need a little bit of color behind those shaker windows to really make them pop. For that, I grabbed a scrap piece of cardstock and added some ink blending to it. Now, you could totally skip this step and blend directly onto your card base, but I personally prefer working on a separate piece. Having that extra cardstock layered behind the shaker window gives me a lot more control when I'm assembling everything on my final card. For the shaker elements, I'm using a mix of the purple solid sequin mix and the ICU confetti mix, both so fun and perfectly Halloween. To make those sequences stand out, I decided to go with a bright, almost fluorescent green background. I used the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks in the shades Limelicious and Perfection to create that vibrant base. I went ahead and ink blended both of these colors onto my scrap piece of cardstock. I wasn't going for a perfect blend here. I just wanted to make sure that the area behind the shaker windows are fully covered with color. Once I was happy with the blending, I decided to add a little sparkle. I bought my Frost Shimmer Mist spray and gave the panel a light misting. I placed it in my splatter box first and then added a few sprays of that gorgeous shimmer mist. It gives such a beautiful subtle shine when it catches the light. Now, while my panel was drying, I moved on to working on my shaker window. Well, it was not until I was almost ready to fill in my shaker window that I realized my phone memory was full and the video had stopped recording. So that's why you didn't see the part where my shaker window is already assembled and I had added foam tape around it to create space for the shaker bits to move freely inside. Don't worry though, I'll show you the full process in detail when we get to our second card. Now, for now, once my foam tape was in place, I'm going to pour the sequin mix to fill the window. Now, since I want the shaker elements to stay right inside the window area that's on the top of our card front, you'll notice that I have placed the foam tape pretty close around each of those window openings. That'll keep all the sequins contained perfectly. Now, before I peel off the backing from the foam tape and adhere my ink blended panel around, here's a little trick that I love to do. I take a thin paintbrush, dip it in some anti-static powder, and lightly brush along the inside edges of the foam tape. This helps prevent the sequins from sticking to the foam tape once the shaker is sealed. It makes such a difference. Next, all that's left to do is remove the backing from the foam tape and carefully place my ink blended panel over the shaker window. I press it down firmly, making sure all the edges are sealed so none of the sequins can escape. Before attaching it to the card base, I like to give it a little shake to make sure that all the sequins move freely inside the window. That's satisfying, and that movement is what makes the shaker cards so much fun. Finally, I used a little bit of liquid glue to adhere this card front onto a top folding card base, and then we can adhere our cauldron and the sentiment and all the other bits and bits, some sequin mixes to finish this card. I'll start by adhering the cauldron using some liquid glue. Now, if you want to add extra dimension, you could definitely use foam tape for the cauldron, but since there's already some dimension in this card, I'm sticking with liquid glue. It also makes mailing the card so much more easier. Of course, if I were to hand deliver it to someone, I wouldn't mind the extra pop. Now, with the cauldron in place, it's time for some finishing touches. I started by adding some fun little sequins to make it a bit spooky and festive. I chose the Simply Batty Confetti sequin mix. Now, the tiny bats look as if they're flying right out of the cauldron. Isn't it absolutely cute? Next, I wanted to add some splatters. Normally, I'd do this before attaching the acetate window, but since I forgot that step, I created four splatters instead. The easiest way is using a black gel pen to make tiny randomly placed dots, just like watercolor splatters. They're really absolutely easy to create. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The more random, the better. To finish it off, I added a little more sparkle with this pastel starlight sequence, and I just love how all that shine and glitter brings the card to life. Finally, all that's left to do is the sentiment, for which I used A cute little sentiment from the Halloween lantern add-on stamp set, which comes with a coordinating die that cuts out both the stamped images and the sentiments perfectly. I stamped the sentiment using my VersaFine Onyx black ink onto a piece of white cardstock and then die cut it using the coordinating die. I adhered it right onto the cauldron using liquid glue. Now, since this is a glitter cardstock, it's not as smooth as your regular cardstock, so I recommend giving the glue a bit of an extra time to dry. I like to place a stamp block gently on top of the sentiment and leave it for a few minutes there. This helps ensure that the sentiment sticks perfectly and stays in place on all that textured glittery surface. And here's a look at the finished card. I absolutely love the beautiful texture and the stunning glitter and shimmer on our card front. And those little sequin mixes peeping through the shaker window. It's just so much fun and festive. If shaker cards aren't your thing, don't worry. I've also created a similar version of this card with the windows but without any shaker sequins. It's really a clean and simple take, perfect if you want the same Halloween vibe without the shaker elements. Moving on to our next card. This one's a little different and perfect for all you Disney lovers out there. It's another shaker style card, but this time I'm using this adorable little mouse ears from the Magical Memories die set, also by Cat Scrappiness. For the color scheme, I'm going with the classic Halloween black and orange. I started by creating my windows using those mouse ear dies to cut out the shapes on my card front. For the back of the windows, I ink blended a scrap piece of cardstock using sherbet and mandarin from the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated Ink collection. Such beautiful shades of oranges. I also added a touch of green that we used earlier just to create a little bit of contrast. To add some sparkle and shine to the background, I spritz it with the Spice Marmalade Distress Spritz Spray, giving it a perfect Halloween shimmer. I let the shimmer spray dry and now I'll show you how I created the shaker window for this card. I started by placing double-sided tape along the four corners on the back of the panel. I also cut a piece of acetate slightly smaller than 4 by 5 and quarter inches and adhered it over the taped area to create my shaker window. Next, to make sure that the sequences have enough room to freely move around, I added foam tape around the edges of the opening. I placed the foam tape close together, leaving no gaps. This ensures that none of the sequences fall out once the shaker is assembled. You could also double up on your foam tape, adding two layers of tape, giving it extra room for your shaker elements to move around. But for this card, I decided not to add too much bulk since I plan on mailing it out rather than hand delivering it. For the sequins, I'm using those gorgeous Tangerine Dream solid sequin mix along with the Halloween mouse sprinkles, which include the cutest little candy corns and tiny orange, black, and white mouse faces. Before peeling off the backing from the foam tape, I went ahead and used my paintbrush dipped in the anti-static powder to brush along the edges of the tape. This will help make sure that the sequins don't stick to the edges once the shaker is assembled. Next, I peeled off the backing from the foam tape and adhered my ink blended panel, closing the shaker window. I absolutely love how gorgeous it's already looking. Now, for this card, instead of using a die cut sentiment, I decided to stamp the sentiment directly on my card front. Now, ideally, I should have done this before creating the shaker window because stamping on a bulky card can be tricky. But I have a solution for that. I brought the panel over to my stamp wheel. Now, normally I use the ultra sticky mat inside the stamp wheel, but it is a bit too thick for this bulky card. So instead of that, I removed this ultra sticky mat, the bulky ultra sticky mat, and swapped it out for the slim grip sticky mat, which is compatible with the stamp wheel. It's very easy to remove the mats from the stamp wheel. All you have to do is just peel one side and just gently pull it out. Now, the slim grip sticky mat is very similar to the ultra sticky mat. It has a tacky surface that will hold your card in place without any of that extra bulk. Now, when you open it out of the packaging, you'll see there is a little acetate sheet that's like a protective covering for this stamp grip mat. And I would recommend you that once you're done using the script mat, I would recommend placing that acetate sheet back so that it retains that tacky surface. Now, once I have placed my panel on this, I will bring my grid transparency sheet and align my sentiment. Now, for this card, I'm using the Happy Halloween sentiment and I stamped it using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And just like I would do a normal stamping, that's exactly what I did here, minus all that bulk from the Ultra Sticky Mat. Now that our card front is almost complete, I'm going to adhere it onto the card base before adding all those beautiful sequin mixes. I'm using a top folding white note card and attaching the panel using liquid glue. Now that our card front is in place, we can add all our beautiful sequin mixes. Now, just like we did with the quadrant card, I'm going to add those beautiful sequins around the shaker windows. This time, instead of the little bats, I'm using the black mouse faces and scattering them randomly across the window. Once the mouse faces are in place, I added the pastel starlight sequin mix around the windows for that extra shine, and finally added a few faux splatters using black gel pen to mimic watercolor splatters, giving this beautiful extra little touch to our fun Halloween card. While I was creating the shaker window, I did remember to add the watercolor splatters this time, but I chose to stick with the four splatters. I felt that this card deserved a more controlled, limited look, which is actually a little tricky for me when working with real watercolors because I do tend to get a bit carried away. Well, here's a look at the finished card. I absolutely loved how it turned out and how easy it was to create. With minimal stamping and die cutting, some fun ink blending, and super sparkly sequin mixes, we managed to make 3 Halloween cards in no time. From a cute yet spooky cauldron card to the adorable Mickey Mouse inspired shaker card, I just love how these designs came together. And don't forget the window, but not shaker card. Isn't this too absolutely stunning? And that's a wrap on today's video. I hope this inspires you to create your own clean and simple Halloween designs, also designs that are perfect to create for your last minute Halloween cards with just 4 days left for Halloween. Now, all the supplies that I use to create these cards will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe and wishing you all a very happy Halloween. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel. If you're just starting out with your watercolor journey, join me as we paint this absolutely gorgeous swan birthday card using easy and relaxing watercoloring techniques. Well, before we dive into that beautiful watercoloring, let's start with some stamping to build our seed and add a sentiment. I'll be using the Graceful Swans stamp set by Simon's Stamp, which was part of their latest Sugar and Spice release. I absolutely love the vintagey details on these images, and the set includes sentiments that are perfect for birthdays, thank yous, and one that says, "May your heart be filled with peace," which is just beautiful. For my card today, I'll be using that big bridge you see there and two of those swans along with the birthday sentiment. The watercolor papers that I'm going to use today is this one from Your Paper Insider. Now I have the 8.5 by 11-inch pack. I have 50 sheets here and I like to have panels ready to go. This is an A2 size panel. The paper here is cold press with a nice bit of texture which helps it absorb more water and paint evenly, perfect for creating smooth washes of color. It's also super forgiving for beginners like me, especially if you tend to go a little overboard with the water like I do sometimes. I'll start by placing my watercolor panel onto the Altenew stamp wheel. I've trimmed the paper down to 4 by 5 and quarter inches, which is slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. To help with the alignment, I'm using the grid transparency sheet over my panel. That way I can position my sentiment and the images perfectly. I began by placing the bridge image towards the lower half of the panel, leaving enough space for my sentiment at the top. Then I chose two of those smaller swans to stamp just below my bridge. I'll admit, arranging the images took a little bit of time because I wanted everything to fit in nicely within the panel without looking too crowded. I also wanted to make sure that my sentiment was centered and had enough breathing room on the upper half of the design. Once I was happy with the placement of all the images, I closed the lid of the stamp wheel to pick them up. Now, I decided to heat emboss these, so before inking, I brushed my anti static powder tool over the entire panel. This helps make sure that the embossing powder only sticks where it should on the stamped areas. Then I stamped the images twice using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to get a nice crisp impression. To remove the paper from the ultra sticky mat after all the stamping was done, I like to use a pointy tool to gently lift the panel from the edge of the paper. This usually prevents bending or warping of the paper. Then I sprinkle clear embossing powder over the stamped image. I like to lightly tap the powder over the design before pouring it off the excess. This helps the powder stick evenly, especially on those fine, detailed lines. Finally, I heat set the embossing powder. Make sure that your heat gun is nice and hot before you start and keep it moving to avoid warping of the paper. Well, this watercolor paper is thicker than your regular cardstock, so it holds up really well. But I still like to follow the same precautions I would when embossing and heat setting on regular cardstock. After heat embossing, I like to give the panel a few minutes to rest before adding any color. I do this even when I'm ink blending, it just helps everything set nicely. While the panel was cooling, I gathered all my supplies. I also sketched a light pencil line along the edge of the bridge to mark where the water ends and the sky begins. It's a very faint line, but it really helps guide the painting process. Here I have a little palette of watercolor samples from different companies. These were actually sent to me by my dear friend Cindy when I first started exploring watercolors. I will have links to all of those companies down in the description box below and their Amazon links as well. I also got a few brushes, a cup of clean water, and a microfiber cloth ready to go. Now, for watercoloring for me, there's really no set rule on how I'm coloring this panel today. I just wanted to have some fun with it and keeping things simple and relaxed. All I'm going to do is add some blue tones to the water and a very light wash of the same color to create a soft, peaceful sky. Well, I had already swatched all of the colors on a piece of watercolor paper and attached it to the lid of my palette. But just to be sure that I'm using the right shade of blue, I like to test it again on a scrap piece of watercolor paper before starting any of that coloring. That way, I know exactly what color I'm looking for. I like to keep this little strip of scrap paper handy because you can also blend other colors over it just to see how that color combination would look. Now, there are two main ways I like to use watercolors. One is painting on wet background and other is applying to a dry background and then blending it out with water. Usually, if I'm working with a single color across the entire panel, I'll go ahead and wet the surface before adding any kind of paint. I would like spritz some water from my spray bottle on the entire background. But since we have a defined line between the water and the sky here, I decided to start by adding color right along the water line. My brush was loaded with water and just a little bit of blue, and I began gently washing that color across the lower part of the panel to create a soft base for the water. Again, we are not aiming for perfection here, so you don't have to have like harsh lines or clean design. Just like in nature, the water doesn't look the same everywhere. It has variation and movement. So I added a bit more depth in certain areas, especially around the bridge and beneath the swan. For that, I brought in a slightly darker shade of blue to give the water some beautiful dimension and make the scene feel even more natural. Moving on to the sky, I used the same light blue that I used for the first water layer, but this time I had a tiny bit of pigment on my brush for a much lighter wash. All you need to do is add plenty of water and gently blend out the color. Just like With the water, I added a few random soft strokes of blue across the sky, then blended them out with clean water. This gives that beautiful airy look with a clear distinction between the water and the sky. You'd never guess that I use the same exact shade for both the blues. I did go back and forth between painting the water and the sky, adjusting both the areas until I was completely happy with the that I wanted. The sky doesn't appear quite as blue on camera, but in person it looks absolutely beautiful. Next, it was time to color the bridge. For that, I used a shade of brown with a fine pointy paintbrush, a bit different from the larger brush that I was using for the water and sky. Once the bridge was done, I added a touch of green on the foliage around the base of the bridge and then used the slightest amount of light gray to create soft shadows on my swans. Now, again, you'll see I did go back and forth with the water and the foliage. Now, adding shadow to the swans is absolutely optional. If you want to leave them white, do that. But then I thought that slightest bit of gray would look absolutely stunning on them. And of course, I couldn't forget their beaks. For that, I used a hint of orange with my tiniest detailed brush. Once all the main elements were colored in, I took a final look at the panel to see if it needed any small adjustments. I deepened a few areas in the water and added soft touches of color wherever I felt it needed, just a bit more contrast. These little tweaks really help bring the whole scene together and make it look more cohesive. At this point, I was really happy with how the watercoloring turned out. It's soft, simple, and perfectly balanced for this serene swan scene. With the main panel complete, it was time to assemble it onto a card front. I decided to foam mount it onto a top folding card base for a little dimension. Now, for this card, I wanted to keep things really clean and simple, no embellishments, sequins, glitter, or extra shine. That's definitely unusual for me since you know how much I love adding sparkle on my projects. But for this project, I wanted the focus to stay entirely on that beautiful scene and the soft, gentle watercoloring. Sometimes less really is more. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video and that it inspired you to pull out your watercolors and create something beautiful of your own. All the supplies that I used today are listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.